Hello there. While the political geeks and pundits race and jump about excitedly over the opening of the EU negotiations, they should spare a thought for the poor ordinary voters out there who thought the in-out debate was settled. Despite the UK voting convincingly to leave the European Union a year ago today, an outsider would be forgiven for thinking we'd only just started the EU referendum campaign this week. We now have that arch Remainer Lord Heseltine saying that Hard Brexit is dead and that Britain leaving the EU is now very much open to question, while the Remain vultures circle what they wrongly see as a dying carcass of Hard Brexit. An embittered George Osborne, the man who backed the wrong horse in the referendum and so lost his chance of gaining the keys to number 10, writes from his new position as editor of the Evening Standard anything he can to damage the government, and especially Theresa May, calling her a dead woman walking. And the apocalyptic talk hasn't stopped either. Do you remember Vince Cable, the Lib Dem Secretary of State for Business, Innovations and Skills in what was basically a Tory government? Well, he's just surfaced, not only as a contender to replace that sorry specimen Tim Farron as Lib Dem leader, but he has also just issued a Brexit crunch warning. Trying to channel the ghosts of the credit crunch and the ensuing Great Recession a decade ago, he said, quote, "A decade ago, the country faced a credit crunch from which we are only just starting to recover. We are now faced with the threat of a Brexit crunch, but which this time would be entirely self-imposed. Immediately after the referendum, Brexiteers smugly observed that the economy had not caved in, despite the accusations of so-called Project Fear. This totally misses the point. The warnings from experts, including the IMF, OECD and the Treasury, were about the long-term health of our economy, not short-term fluctuations. And just a year after the vote to leave, their predictions are coming true. We have seen a collapse in the pound, dwindling consumer confidence and a stagnating economy. Even the Brexiteers' much hoped-for exporting boom has failed to materialise, with our trade deficit the same size as it was a year ago. An extreme UKIP-style hard Brexit that tears up our membership of the single market and customs union would almost inevitably result in heavy job losses and a slump in growth and living standards. It isn't too late to change course. Instead of embarking on a reckless and damaging extreme Brexit, we should be addressing the underlying economic challenges the country faces, from crumbling infrastructure to poor productivity. Theresa May needs to accept that the public mood has changed and work with other parties towards a Brexit deal that puts people's jobs and living standards first." End quote. Some points on this. The reason the economy has not yet improved is because we are still in the EU and we are still bound by its rules and regulations. We can't export to the new markets we are not yet allowed to exploit. But Vince knows that. Like any good Remoaner, he's just misleading us as usual. Also, if the economy had improved over the last year, he would now be hailing it as proof that we needed to remain in the EU. Next, the pound hasn't collapsed. It has continued along the long-term bear market trend it's been following since mid-2014. In fact, it may recently have levelled off a bit. Check out the 5-year trend on any currency chart. Also, the FTSE 100 and FTSE 250 are both doing rather well, thank you very much, despite the best efforts of these people to talk our country down. And talking about crumbling infrastructure, if Vince had done his job properly while he was in that coalition, our infrastructure would be sound. After all, he had a 5-year stab at it, and it only ended a couple of years ago. The public mood has not changed on Brexit. Otherwise, Vince's party would have seen a renaissance. His ex-leader, Tim Farron, tried to get on the Remain bandwagon, but someone had nicked the wheels, the horses had been put out to pasture, and the Lib Dems got nowhere. Finally, those economic challenges, that crumbling infrastructure, and that poor productivity are all symptoms of the illness of remaining in the EU. It is ridiculous to think otherwise after all these decades of being in the single market. The EU is, As far as the UK is concerned, a failed experiment and something we need to quickly put behind us. So stop this Groundhog Day of rerunning the referendum arguments, stop trying to frustrate the democratic will of the people, and let's get free of the EU. We don't need Remainer pessimism and the uncertainty that it generates. Either help or get out of the way. Now, do you agree that we need to ignore these people who would rather see the UK fail than admit the EU is wrong for us? Please leave a comment below. Thank you. Please do like and share this video, and also subscribe to my channel. And when subscribing, please do remember to press on the little bell next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get an alert every single time I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching.